Hello, my name is Sarah Holland. Welcome to the Fertile Mindset podcast. Each week on the podcast, we'll explore how your mind can help you create a meaningful and happy life. And through the conversations here, we'll be planting seeds of inspiration to bring you more clarity, purpose, and joy. This podcast is for you if you've ever felt stuck or unsatisfied with life and know that you want to live in a bigger and more beautiful way. I hope you enjoy the time you spend with us. Let's begin. Hello and welcome back to the Fertile Mindset podcast, where we are now continuing with interviews with fascinating people who I feel embody those values that I love to talk about: clarity, purpose and joy. The guests who'll be joining us will be sharing their stories and how they live their lives and how their work is making a positive impact in the world. Since we released last week's episode, I've been continuing to meet with guests to have more conversations, and I am beyond excited to release them. But however excited I am, I will be sticking to the schedule of one episode a week. So do check back with us every Thursday for a new conversation that is sure to inspire you. I know they have inspired me as I've been recording them. If feeling inspired and motivated is your thing and you like a little support, then I'd love you to sign up for my Daily Seeds emails, where I'll send you a short message to your inbox each day, as well as giving you some useful resources to clear overwhelm, release stress, and improve focus by using EFT tapping. Now, if you haven't heard of or used EFT before, don't worry, as I've included a video to teach you EFT in just 8 minutes. Go to fertilemindset.com/dailyseeds to sign up for the messages and receive the free resources. Now, Model Strangers is one of my favourite accounts to follow on Instagram. The videos are beautiful snippets of human life and interaction, and the community that it's created is so positive and heartwarming. Knowing that this was one person's project which seemed like a pursuit of their purpose, I knew that I had to invite the Model Strangers creator, Chris, onto the podcast. I was delighted when he accepted my invitation, and I really enjoyed this behind-the-scenes conversation where we talk about how and why Model Strangers got started and learn more about this amazing project which has a rapidly growing following. Christopher Ward was born in South Africa and now lives in Northern Ireland. He's a wedding videographer and photographer who decided just last year to try something different. He'd been feeling creatively unfulfilled for a long time and wanted to explore a new project that would showcase humanity. The result is Model Strangers, now with over 700,000 followers on Instagram. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Chris and feel inspired by how he has brought purpose into his life in a very creative way. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining me here. It's really lovely to meet you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thanks so much for inviting me. I'm thrilled to take part.
Wonderful. You know, I've been following your account for some time, and you just felt like the obvious person to speak to learn more about how you got to create this project and find out more about you as a person. And I just can't wait to dive into it. So let's start by hearing a little bit about you, Chris, and who you are and what Model Strangers is all about.
Okay, well, I'm living in Northern Ireland at the moment. We're living here for about 20 years. Originally from a city called Durban in South Africa. So I was born in South Africa. My parents immigrated there whenever they got married. But things became a little bit unstable, so they wanted to return to their home in Northern Ireland. I was about 18 at the time. Since then, I've just been, I've been into videography and photography for as long as I can remember. Wanted to make money from it, of course, because it was my passion and it's something I wanted to do full time. So I went into wedding videography, and I've been doing that for about 10, 15 years. And just had been feeling a little bit stifled, creatively unfulfilled, a little bit bored for a long time, and wanted to do something new, wanted to try something a little bit different, something also that would help me get out of my own head as videographers, we spend a lot of time editing, a lot of time by ourselves, which isn't healthy. So I wanted to do something that would help me get out, talk to people. And I had seen some similar accounts on Instagram doing something of the same vein, in the same vein, street portraits. But I always felt that it was missing a human element. You know, they weren't really talking to their subject, the person that they stopped. And yeah, one evening I just had the idea, why don't I try that? Why don't I do that? Didn't have any faith in myself, though, because I'm quite an introverted person. It's difficult for anybody, I think, to approach a stranger on the street. And for me, I thought it was going to be very daunting. Didn't think I was going to be able to do it, to be honest. But I remember that first day I went out to experiment, and I did it. You know, I think the having the camera, holding the camera, gives you a certain amount of power. I think, you know, and yeah, I just love it. I started it last summer. I think it was last June or July, and it's just taken off from there. And I'm thrilled to see it take off.
Wow, amazing to think it's less than a year ago. And yeah,
Yeah,
the audience that you've gathered in that time and the amount of comments you get on every video, it's amazing. It's become a community in itself, hasn't it?
yeah,
And I
all positive comments as well.
yes, and that's something that I noticed as I was looking through yet
Yeah,
again in preparation to speak to you. I'm always looking at them, and yeah, how overwhelmingly positive all the comments are,
yeah,
which is wonderful to see
yeah,
because there's not a lot of spaces online, especially on social media, where people come together for a positive reason and share in joy and happiness together. And I think it's yeah, beautiful to
absolutely.
see.
Yeah, so I mean, there's so much talk. There's so much on social media these days that is very toxic. Everybody's fighting with each other, um, and I am so happy that my community is so positive. As you said, as we were talking about there, reading the comments, it's 99% positive because I have a certain amount of responsibility to the people that I find. People are out there walking along, minding their own business. Then I step in front of them and I put them on the internet. So I definitely don't want them to be abused in any way, to be made fun of. And I'm happy that doesn't happen. Everybody is lovely and supportive. And I'm so happy about that.
That approach that you have with people on the street, that's really interesting to watch. That just first moment when you approach someone, and you always seem to say, I think you always say the same thing, I'm sorry to bother you, I'm sorry to
Yeah,
bother you, and
yeah,
and
yeah.
and they're like, oh, that's okay, so you've immediately got that little connection with them.
Yeah,
And yeah, you give them a compliment, which I think is
yeah,
beautiful, because that's so
yeah.
rare as well, isn't it, that we say something nice to each other, that a stranger would say something nice to us.
Yeah, it helps to lower the defenses as well if you go up and try and get a compliment out as soon as possible because people's person's face will then just soften and
Mm.
they'll be because at the start you'll notice somebody's face is a little bit they're kind of curious what does this person want, but then once you pay them a compliment their face softens and of course it's always a sincere compliment because I have stopped them for a specific reason, you know, because I've noticed them. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
people don't hear compliments too often about
That's
themselves.
right. That's right. I noticed a comment on one of your videos as I was scrolling through. Someone said that you have a radar for amazing, authentic people. And you seem to be able
Yeah.
to spot the people that, you can't possibly know their stories when you see them in the street. They may dress in an interesting way or look interesting,
Mm.
but you can't possibly know what's behind that person. So how do you choose them? Do you feel like you've got some kind of sixth sense, or is it very random?
No, I mean, I do spend a lot of time out. I don't just approach indiscriminately. I spend a lot of time looking and observing and waiting for the right person. Sometimes I get it wrong. You know, I'm not always having wonderful conversations with everybody, but 9 times out of 10, you know, it'll be a productive, stimulating conversation. It's just somebody that I see that has a depth to them. If I think that person has depth and an intelligence, or if they look kind of quiet, I'll be attracted to that person. And usually, yeah, yeah, I will have a very productive conversation with that person. And yeah, I just look for depth and intelligence, and sometimes sadness as well.
Mm.
Sadness. I notice. Um, somebody sitting by themselves in a park or wherever, and I'll just notice a sadness about them. Like the one of the recent posts I did was Courtney, the lady with the spinning wheel, and
Mm,
she was in Botanic, dressed very sort of old fashioned, and everything was handmade. And I saw her. Not only was the sight just something unusual, but yeah, I just noticed so much sadness around her. And when I spoke to her, I was that was kind of confirmed.
yeah.
She was a little bit sad, but she was you know striving and getting there, getting back to herself, getting back to her happiness by using her hands and creating things, which we talked about in the on the
Mm.
video.
It makes me
Yeah.
wonder if everyone has a story to tell, don't they? Everyone. And it may be that they feel too shy or private, or it's just not a good time for them. So they're not going to be the ones that will talk. But if they're open and they give you some time, it makes me wonder if everyone has an interesting story. We can be inspired
Yeah.
by each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody has a story. We're all, as humans, we're all similar in many ways. We have the same fears and desires, but we all have our own individual backstory, our own history, our own stories. And I think it's helpful to tap into that. And me as a stranger, as a blank slate, people feel, I think, comfortable about being open with a stranger, which sounds counter sort of intuitive. You think they might be a little bit closed off and guarded, but if you're a stranger with a nice, happy face, they will, tell you about themselves.
Mm. And tell over 500,000 people as well along the way through
I
your
know,
account.
I know, I know. The funny thing is, the lady Anne from Belfast, who became very popular, the lady with gray hair, 70-year-old,
Yes.
she said to me when I first met her, when I was taking pictures of her, she said, "I hope nobody's watching," because she was embarrassed about. And I said, "Don't worry, nobody's watching." And then, 30, 40 million views later, quite a few people were watching.
Oh, I know. I mean, it has the potential to be life-changing, doesn't it? Because I was thinking about it, and yeah, I think she went on to get some kind of modeling work afterwards,
Yeah, yeah,
and yeah, others. I remember the guy in Ghana with his restaurant in Ghana, and
yeah,
and he got the
yeah.
exposure for his small business, and yeah, it has the potential to bring those
Oh,
amazing people to the world.
yeah, it has a potential to change somebody's life. So I have a sort of a big responsibility there, and I feel very privileged to be in that position where I can sort of change somebody's life. And Anne is, yeah, I have a debt of gratitude toward Ellis, the gentleman from Ghana,
Mm.
because he's one of the first people I spoke with, and he went viral, and he really helped my account, um, go reach a wider audience. So I have a debt of gratitude to him, and it opened up to him to some exposure to him as well, and his beautiful restaurant and bed and breakfast or hotel that he has in Ghana. So yeah, yeah,
Mm.
wonderful human being.
Mm. So I'm wondering how this fits into your life. Are you still doing the wedding photography as well?
Yeah,
And you're going out on the streets mostly in Belfast, but you travel as well
yeah, I
with your
travel as
with your
well.
account?
I wish I could devote more time to it, to be honest,
Mm.
but I do have like other responsibilities, so it's difficult
Mhm.
to. And also, I'm not really, um, all those posts that I make on Instagram, all those conversations that I have that might get millions of views, I'm not getting paid for any of that. Instagram isn't paying me, so I have other responsibilities that I have to, weddings and wedding photography, wedding videography. But I devote as much time as possible to it, and I would go out maybe once a week. Yeah, mostly in Belfast, sometimes Dublin, London occasionally as well. I don't know whereabouts are you?
I'm just north of London, about 40 miles
Oh,
north of London. So yeah, I'll look
oh,
out for you next time I'm there.
yeah, yeah. I love London. I love, you see, there's good and bad aspects of London. The
Mm.
good thing is there's so much foot traffic, so many people, so much diversity, but everybody's in a rush. It's hard to have an intimate moment with somebody, too noisy. So I'll stick to the parks,
Mm.
in London, which is kind of, it's yeah, I'll stick to the parks. But
Yeah.
I love London.
And I think you did a series in Como as well, which is somewhere I've been around Lake Como. You did some
Yes,
Italian conversations, and I think you bumped into a lot of Irish people in
I
Italy. Is
know,
that right? How
I
did that
know, I
happen?
know. It just happened. It just happened. No, I was invited by the football club in Como to come out and just do what I do over there. So the football club was just looking to promote itself in the area, and so I've had a very good relationship with them so far, and I
Mm.
was out there. Hopefully, I'll be out again. But you're right. A lot of the people that I spoke with in Como were from Ireland, which is remarkable because I didn't know they were Irish at all before I approached them. But yeah, yeah,
You
coincidence.
find them, you find them. I love when you said right at the start, when you said when you created this project, that you're an introvert and, it took
Yeah,
some confidence to go out there. And actually, you said you approached it like an experiment to
yeah,
just go out
yeah,
that first time. I guess until
yeah.
you did it the first time, you didn't really know what the response would be, if you would enjoy doing
No,
it, what kind of conversations would happen. It was, yeah, a big
yeah.
experiment, really.
Yeah, as I said earlier on there, I don't have much, like a lot of people, I don't have much faith in myself and my own ability. So when I had this idea, I remember driving down to Dublin that first day. And I remember thinking while I was driving down in the car, those negative thoughts that we all have all the time. I remember thinking, I'm going to arrive in Dublin this afternoon. I'm going to get out of the car and I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm just going to walk around for a couple of hours with the will and the desire to do it, but I'm not going to have the courage. Um, but I got out of the car, and within the first 20 minutes, I had made my first approach. And I stopped at the Botanic Gardens in Dublin, and that's when I met 3 or 4 people that day, and that got me off to a good start. So I
Mm.
had developed then the confidence and said I can do this, and I enjoy doing it. I enjoy talking to people, and there we go. It's off to the races.
I think as I was watching your videos, a theme that kind of came forward for me that I was sensing from the people that you speak to, but also for yourself, and I'm seeing it here now again, is that real human vulnerability
Yeah,
and connecting on that level. There was one moment, I forget who it was you were speaking to, but you said to them at the end, "Thank you for saying yes. You're the first person who said
yeah,
yes, and you gave my
yeah,
confidence a boost." And they were someone I think who was quite shy as well, and it was like a real meeting of people to give each other that kind of confidence boost, and that was very
yeah.
special.
I think it helps to be authentic like that and just to be real with somebody. Um, because a lot of the time when I stop somebody, they'll have this impression that I'm probably some big fancy professional photographer, that's come along and they're all nervous and they don't know how to pose. But I'm not. I'm just another human being. And yeah, so it helps to um, be real and authentic. And if I'm feeling a little bit nervous, if I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable or shy or whatever, just to tell the person that, to make them realize
Mm.
that they're just dealing with not some fancy professional photographer, but just another human being. And all those things that I tell people are I'm being real in the moment, being real in the moment.
Mm.
That's helpful. I think it's helpful
Mm.
for the bond.
Yeah, and to enable that conversation to flow and them to feel comfortable speaking to you.
Yes,
Mm.
exactly. Yeah.
And
And yeah.
do you think that's why you have so many loyal followers now that will wait in anticipation for every video and comment on every video, and well, that connection that they see and what they can see in themselves through the videos?
Yes, yeah. I'm just so thankful that I have built up this community of followers that people seem to appreciate what I do. And I get so many lovely comments all the time, not just about the people that I've found and discovered, but people being very complimentary about me, saying things like I'm very good with people or I have a lovely way about me. But, you know, I am in my 40s, and this is the first time I've ever heard anybody saying these things about me. I didn't realize I had these skills or possessed these attributes. So it's very nice to hear. Very nice to hear.
Mm.
And yeah, I have a big community who really enjoy sort of seeing the people that I discover and learning something from all these people that I discover, because everybody I stop has so much wisdom, you know?
Mm. Yeah, that's one of the questions you often ask, isn't it? Is what have you learned in life, or what would you tell your younger self? Those kind of reflective
Yeah.
questions bring out some really interesting.
It's interesting. And the most common answer is always, or the most common answer is to, trust your own instincts. Don't do what makes you happy. Follow your own heart, follow your own path. And that's something that really speaks to me as well. That resonates with me as well. And I think it's an important message to hear.
Well, that's exactly what you did with this project, wasn't it? You were feeling unsatisfied in your work and knowing you
Yeah.
wanted something else, being inspired by similar, although very, I'm sure not the same, accounts out there, of street photography, and thinking, yeah, I could
Yeah.
do that, but bringing that extra layer, the
The
human
human
layer to it.
layer. Yeah.
Yeah, and I tell you, your account most reminds me to, and I haven't looked at it for a while actually, a Honey, the Humans of New York
Yes,
account, which
yes.
is just still photography, I think, isn't it?
Still
It's just
photography.
one photograph and then their story, which is quite, and all just in written form, and that draws
Hmm.
people in,
Hmm.
in amazing numbers. So to actually almost feel like you're meeting someone, because it's not a still image and it's not written words, it's hearing it
Hmm.
from those people in a really vulnerable moment often, and
Hmm.
really caught unawares, and they're sharing something about
Yeah.
their story, and it's so, so beautiful.
Yeah, I appreciate those nice words. So look, the Humans of New York was something I was definitely inspired by. It was something I thought about last year before I started my own account. And yeah, it's stills with some
Mm.
text,
Mm.
with the person talking about their life, or something that's happened to them recently. Um, but I wanted to do it in video form, and I've always been sort of fascinated by the idea of going up to somebody on the street, breaking that taboo, and seeing what happens,
Mm.
and seeing what happens, um, and heartwarming is a word that gets used a lot about my account. Now, to be honest, I didn't start off with the idea that I was going to do something very heartwarming. I just wanted to speak to people and see what happened, you know. And I'm fascinated by documentaries where that kind of thing happens. Like, there's two people that I really admire: Louis Theroux, his early stuff, and also another documentary filmmaker called Nick Broomfield. I love his work, not as well known as Louis Theroux, but kind of similar, where, they are putting themselves in situations where they're interacting with the general public and seeing what happens. It's very spontaneous, very little bit chaotic sometimes. Um, But it's just turned out that most of the interactions I have with people are seldom awkward or difficult or uncomfortable. They're always just heartwarming and lovely, and people are kind and generous, and it's just, yeah, it's
Mm.
lovely. It's lovely to see.
Yeah, and it's very real. It's very not rehearsed, not scripted.
No,
Real
no,
people, not
yeah,
having, yeah, you asking the questions and answering them instantly. There was one I watched yesterday, which probably is, I don't know if it's your briefest conversation that you had, and perhaps the fewest words said, I don't know. It was the guy who had the necklace on, the special necklace, the
yes,
slavery
yeah,
necklace, and
yeah,
he, yeah, he said very few words, and he had quite a
yeah,
suspicious
he
feeling about him
was,
at first,
yeah,
but
yeah,
there
yeah,
was some warming towards the end,
yeah,
and I think from the comments as well, people, it helps people relate on any level. If someone's having a hard day,
hmm,
and they related to him
hmm,
saying about pain, I remember he said the
yeah,
word pain, and we don't, it's not always just about positive
exactly,
sound
exactly,
bites and great advice. It's
exactly.
about meeting people where they are, isn't it? And saying, yeah,
Yeah,
I can relate to that too. I understand how that guy's feeling. And
yeah.
yeah,
Because
I'm not
I
alone.
posted a lot of things where they were positive interactions, heartwarming interactions. And that gentleman, I had actually second thoughts about posting it. I wasn't going to post it because I felt like I built up this community of people who were expecting something positive heartwarming, a lovely interaction with another fellow human.
Mm.
And with him, it was very awkward, and a little bit, yeah, he trusted me and he didn't trust me. I think he kind of, even though it was only a 3 or 4 or 5 minute encounter, I think at the start he was very suspicious and then less suspicious. But I just felt the interaction was too short. It wasn't heartwarming enough. And I thought, no, that's why I started this account, for it to be interactions that are just, you don't know what's going to happen and you don't know who this person is. And it doesn't have to be heartwarming. And I felt very awkward during that encounter, very awkward. Because when I approached him, I just felt like, I felt like he was going to say no. That's the impression I got. In the first 5 seconds of an encounter, I will know how it's going to go. And with him, I thought, no, this person doesn't like me, doesn't want to be bothered. But then he was kind enough to give me a couple of minutes. And when I said to him about him having a mellow vibe, which was something that just came off, it wasn't pre-planned. And he said it comes from pain, and that was just so surprising to me, that somebody would just say that and admit that so freely. And I didn't ask him any more about that, because we didn't really have close enough bond for me to, and I didn't think he wanted to really divulge or go into it. But the mystery there is part of the effect. The mystery. Everybody, so many people have wanted to know who he is, where they can find him. And I actually had somebody phone me recently on, somebody I don't know, somebody phoned me on Instagram who divulged some more information about him, because he'd sort of knew him. But he's one of the most interesting encounters I've had. And then he talked about slavery, because he had the necklace. And I asked him about the necklace. And he had got the necklace in Portugal. And it was one of my most popular encounters. I think at 10 million views or something like that. Yeah.
You see? And if you hadn't posted it, that's
I know
10 million people who wouldn't have seen it, and what it would mean to each person as they watch that. Amazing.
Yeah.
Now,
as you say, that resonates with people, that pain aspect, saying about the pain. A lot of people had messaged saying that they resonated so strongly with them.
I think you've got an amazing mix of the raw and honest and vulnerable, and the light-hearted as well, and the fun, which is true. We're a spectrum, aren't we, human beings? There's every type out there, and every experience. And something that I love watching on your videos, and it makes sense now hearing about your wedding background as well, is the couples that you meet. Such a lovely energy when you're speaking to the couple, and they've both got their own personalities coming, and maybe one wants to be photographed more than the other, or whatever.
I know.
And hearing about their story, and you ask them, especially the older couples, you'll ask them what's the secret to a long and happy marriage, and the beautiful couple that had just got engaged the day before. It's so lovely to see the couples. I love that part of your work.
Yeah, so do I. It's always interesting to just get it's not just a single person. They're part of a team, they're part of a couple. So it's interesting to hear their perspective on life and relationships. And I like to mix it up a little bit, I like to mix it up. All types of people, couples. Yeah,
brilliant. I love it. And there's one, all the questions that you ask are fantastic. And we always ask the same question to all of our guests here, which I've noticed is a question that you ask too in a lot of your videos. The question is, what brings you joy? And my most memorable answer that you got to that question was the girl that said a particular flavor of J2O drink.
Yes.
Apple and mango, I think. She said
it's
gonna sound silly, but it's this. And she said it's the best day of my life when I have that drink. She just adored it so much. So I think that was a brilliant answer to what brings you joy. And I'm sure
J2O missed out there because they could have promoted that post or shared it, you know. I
Yeah,
know
you
they
should be
did.
getting sponsorship for sure.
Exactly. I know they did leave a comment, I think. They did leave a comment, so they did
Oh,
notice it, you know. But yeah.
brilliant. Yeah, you couldn't get a better advert, could you?
Yeah.
Is that a question that you like to ask people? Is that a nice way to bring something out of them, to
The
discover
question
more about
about what
them?
makes you
Yeah,
happy, what makes you joy.
yeah,
Yeah, it is. It is, you know. It's just one of those questions that I ask to sort of get a conversation going, to see what they say and then bounce off from that, you know. But I think it's helpful, you know, to find out who the person is and what their interests are and just what makes them happy, you know.
yeah.
Usually people give you a different answer and it's always interesting to hear.
Yeah, yeah. And before I move on to that question, there was something else I wanted to ask you
Yeah,
actually, as you talked about your own experience and your
yeah.
own confidence. And, what has this brought you? Do you feel that it has brought up your confidence levels in your work and your photography skills, as well as now your amazing people skills that you've discovered?
Yeah.
And do you still feel nervous going out? Do you get butterflies every time you go out and approach someone, or has that got easier in time?
Yeah. It has given me confidence with regards to, I think it's improved my photography for one. And it's also given me confidence in just dealing with people and speaking with people. Not that I was terrible at that to begin with, but it's just given me a certain amount of confidence to be able to do that. That I'm not, um, you know, I'm not talking to strangers is completely normal to me now. But I still do get nervous. The first approach every day when I go out, the first one or two, I will still be nervous. So I'll still have a little bit of adrenaline. Not as bad as before when I first started, but a little bit. So yeah, I'll get a little bit nervous. And yeah. But what did you ask as well? Sorry. Yes, something else there about,
Yeah. What has it brought you? You started this to be more creatively fulfilled. Like
yeah,
we see what it's brought all your followers and the people that you speak to.
yeah.
What's it given you, this whole
It's just
project?
given me, I think it's just given me some satisfaction that I think that I'm doing something positive, positive. Um, One thing before I started this account that I was um, sort of, I've, I always noticed was particularly the media. They want us all lumped into categories, a category of person, and they want all those categories to be fighting with each other. Um, but we are all individuals. We are all individuals, not a category of person. So I wanted to show that, and I wanted to show that humanity that we all have, um, and that's brought me a lot of satisfaction. Satisfaction that we don't have to be fighting with each other all the time, especially on social media. Don't listen to the mass media. We all have a shared humanity. We all have a shared humanity. And so that's what I'm most proud of,
Mm, beautiful. Well, I wish you
Yeah.
well with continued success with Model Strangers. I'm sure it's just going to continue to grow. Your audience
I
is
hope so.
growing by the day. It's amazing to see. Let's ask you that question now then, Chris. What brings you joy?
Well, I'm just going to have to say Model Strangers brings me joy because before I started doing this, I was in the doldrums a little bit, not feeling very creatively fulfilled. I was feeling a little bit bored, a little bit depressed. So this has just um, really opened things up for me, has made me see the good in people, has made me connect with my fellow humans. And I am just always happy to go out onto the street, talk to people who I otherwise wouldn't have met, wouldn't have known, discovering things about them, and making friends and bringing joy as well to the people who watch my interactions.
What a huge amount to come out of a little experiment one day.
I
That's
know, I
amazing.
know. I wish I'd started this sooner.
Yeah,
I wish I'd
yeah.
started it sooner.
Wonderful. Thank you. And
Yeah,
where can we
yeah.
find Model Strangers? Which platforms are you on? Where do you post your content?
Well, I'm on Model Strangers on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. all the usual places. YouTube. I don't update YouTube as much as I should, but mostly Instagram and TikTok is where you'll find me.
Wonderful.
And Facebook.
We shall put all the links into the show notes too. Wonderful. It's been
Thank you so much.
amazing to speak to you and to hear so much about behind the scenes of Model Strangers. I'm never going to look at it in the same way again. I know a little bit more now, so I'm pleased to give an insight into how it came about and what the experience is like for you. It's amazing. Thank you for sharing, Chris.
Thank you so much for the invite. I appreciate that.
Thank you for listening to the Fertile Mindset podcast. Please rate and review, and remember to follow or subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you are listening. Now, if this conversation has sparked something within you and you want to live your life with clarity, purpose, and joy, then I would love you to sign up for my Daily Seeds emails. They're delivered to you each day, giving you messages of support and planting seeds of inspiration. You'll also receive welcome gifts from me, including an EFT tuition video and some of my favourite tapping exercises to clear overwhelm, reduce stress, help you focus, and more, all completely free of charge. I'll also keep in touch with you about upcoming events and support that I think you'll like. Go to fertilemindset.com/dailyseeds to sign up. And I'll see you again next week for another episode of the Fertile Mindset podcast.